Most people think stress reveals who you really are. Delta Force operators know better. Stress doesn't reveal anything. It's too sudden, too chaotic, too easy to fake for 30 seconds. What actually reveals you is the second moment, the one nobody's watching for. Not when the plan breaks, but what you do 4 seconds after it breaks. That's the window operators are trained to watch, and almost nobody passes it cleanly. This is what 20 years of selection courses, hostage rescues, and close quarters battle have taught the men who built Delta Force's psychological evaluations. It's not about who flinches. Everybody flinches. It's about what happens in the silence right after. Camp Dawson, West Virginia. A candidate is 4 hours into a land navigation leg that was supposed to take 2. He reaches a checkpoint expecting relief and instead gets new coordinates, no explanation, no acknowledgement. A cadre member stands there, clipboard in hand, watching. Not the map, not the compass. The candidate's face, his hands, the half-second pause before he speaks. This is the actual test. Most people assume Delta selection measures physical endurance under stress. Former operators have said otherwise for decades. What it measures is the gap between the moment stress hits and the moment a person regains control of themselves. Some candidates close that gap in under a second. Others never close it at all, and they don't even realize they're the ones who didn't. Understanding what operators are actually trained to notice requires understanding something most people get backwards about stress itself. The popular image of toughness is loud. Jaw set, eyes hard, voice steady, the cinematic version of composure. Operators are taught to distrust that image almost immediately because it's the easiest thing in the world to perform for a few seconds. Research on acute stress response, including work out of the University of California on cognitive load under threat, has found that the body's first reaction to sudden stress is almost universal regardless of training. A spike in cortisol, a narrowing of visual focus, a measurable drop in working memory. Nobody is exempt from this. Not Delta operators, not Olympic athletes, not surgeons. The first half-second belongs to biology, not character. What separates people isn't whether that spike happens. It's how long the system stays flooded afterward and what a person does while it's happening. This is the distinction former Delta operator Larry Vickers has pointed to when describing close quarters battle training. The goal was never to eliminate the startle response. It was to shrink the recovery window until it became smaller than the time it takes an adversary to capitalize on it. Selection isn't built to find people who don't flinch. It's built to find people whose flinch costs them almost nothing. This is the first thing cadre members are trained to watch for, and it has nothing to do with physical performance. It's the half-second after a checkpoint announcement, after a sudden change of plan, after being told the rules just shifted without warning. Does the person's attention go inward, replaying what just happened, defending themselves against it internally? Or does it go outward, immediately scanning for the next actionable fact? Operators call the first pattern freezing on the insult. It's not about ego in the petty sense. It's about a nervous system that treats a disruption as a threat to be processed before it treats it as a problem to be solved. The second pattern, attention going outward immediately, is what selection is hunting for. It's rare. It's also almost impossible to fake for more than a few seconds, because faking it requires suppressing the inward spiral, and suppression itself takes visible cognitive effort. Haney, one of Delta's founding members, described a moment during his own selection that captures this distinction precisely. He wasn't being evaluated through a confrontation. He was being evaluated through silence. That single answer told Beckwith everything he needed to know, not because of the content, but because of the speed and ease with which Haney produced it. There was no inward spiral to manage. The reframe was already complete before the question was finished. That's not bravado. Bravado takes effort. This took none. This is the second thing operators are trained to notice, and it's subtler than the first. Not whether someone can perform confidence, but whether their explanation of a stressful event arrives instantly or gets constructed in real time. A person reaching for justification, even a calm-sounding one, is doing visible cognitive labor. You can hear it in the pacing. There's a half-beat of throat clearing, a slight rise in pitch, filler words appearing where they weren't a moment ago. None of this is conscious deception. It's the sound of a nervous system still negotiating with itself while the mouth is already talking. Former Delta operator Paul Howe, who has written extensively about combat psychology and decision-making under fire, has described watching for exactly this pattern in close-quarters training environments. Howe's account of training selection for CQB skills emphasizes that the operators who consistently performed under live stress weren't the ones who seemed unbothered. They were the ones whose decision-making speed didn't change measurably between a calm walkthrough and a chaotic live-fire scenario. The visible signs of stress might still be present: elevated breathing, sweat, a tighter grip, but the gap between observation and decision stayed constant. That consistency, more than any outward display of calm, is what cadre and team leaders are trained to track. This connects to something else worth understanding: the difference between stress tolerance and stress recovery, and why operators are almost exclusively selected and trained on the second. Stress tolerance is what most people imagine when they picture toughness, the ability to absorb a hit and keep functioning. It's real, it matters, and it's trainable to a degree. But it has a ceiling. Everyone's tolerance eventually gets exceeded by something: a long enough timeline, a high enough stake situation, an unexpected enough failure. Stress recovery is different. It's not about the size of the hit you can take. It's about how fast your system returns to a state where clear decisions are possible again. Research on combat experienced personnel, including studies referenced by military psychologists studying special operations selection, has consistently found that recovery speed, not raw tolerance, is a stronger predictor of performance across repeated high-stress events. A person with moderate tolerance and fast recovery will outperform a person with high tolerance and slow recovery almost every time, because the second person eventually hits an event large enough to overwhelm them, and then has no fast way back. This is why operators watching a candidate, or sizing up a new partner unit, or evaluating a teammate after a bad night, aren't asking how much can this person take. They're asking how fast does this person come back online. It shows up in small, almost invisible ways. After a mistake, does the person's next decision get made at normal speed, or does it visibly slow down while they're still processing the previous failure? After being corrected sharply, does their next sentence arrive clean, or does it carry a defensive edge that wasn't there a minute earlier? These are moral judgments. They're operational ones. In an environment where the next decision might matter more than the last mistake, slow recovery isn't a personality flaw. It's a liability with a body count attached if the wrong person is depending on you in the wrong second. There's a third thing operators are specifically trained to notice, and it might be the most counterintuitive: how a person treats other people in the room during a stressful moment, not how they treat the threat itself. George Hanford, a retired Delta operator who deployed to Mogadishu and later documented his experiences during selection and operational deployments, has written about how character under pressure often reveals itself sideways, not head-on. A candidate or operator focused entirely inward during a crisis, even one who's performing competently, is operating on a kind of psychological scarcity. Every ounce of attention is being spent managing their own internal state. There's nothing left over for situational awareness of the people around them. The operator's hand describes as the ones worth trusting in genuinely bad moments were the ones who, even mid-crisis, still had bandwidth to notice a teammate struggling, to redirect someone who'd frozen, to ask a one-word question that reoriented the whole team without breaking stride. That spare capacity, the ability to manage your own state and still have attention left over for someone else's, is treated as one of the clearest signals of genuine composure versus performed composure. This is why the old image of toughness, stone-faced and silent, isn't actually what gets elected for. Silence under stress can mean total command of the moment. It can also mean total internal collapse with nothing left to spend on anyone else. From the outside, in the first few seconds, they can look identical. What separates them only becomes visible over the following minutes. In whether that silence eventually produces an action that helps someone else, or whether it just continues being silence until the crisis resolves itself without that person's input. Put these three patterns together and a clearer picture forms of what's actually being measured, not just in Delta selection, but in any environment built to find people who function when things go wrong. It's not whether you flinch. Everyone flinches. It's the size of the gap between the flinch and the recovery. It's not whether your voice stays steady. It's whether your explanation for what just happened arrives instantly or gets visibly assembled in real time. And it's not whether you stay quiet under pressure. It's whether that quiet eventually produces bandwidth for someone else, or whether it's just silence with nothing behind it. None of this is about bravery in the way the word usually gets used. Bravery, in the popular sense, is often just the willingness to be afraid and move anyway, and that matters. But what operators are trained to notice goes one layer deeper than willingness. It's about architecture, how fast a nervous system resets, how much of it is left over for someone else once the immediate threat is being handled. That architecture isn't something you can perform in the moment it's being tested. It either exists from years of exposure and recovery, or it doesn't, and pressure simply reveals which one is true. This is also why selection courses are built the way they are, stretched across days and weeks instead of compressed into a single dramatic test. A single moment can be gamed. A person can summon 30 seconds of perfect composure through pure adrenaline and willpower. What can't be gamed is the 200th moment, 4 days into sleep deprivation, when the body has nothing left to fake with, and the only thing left operating is whatever was actually built underneath. That's the moment cadre are patient enough to wait for. Not the first crack. The 40th one, when there's no energy left to hide what's underneath it. So the next time you watch footage of an operator standing calm in the middle of chaos, understand that the calm itself isn't the impressive part. Plenty of people can hold a face still for a camera. What you're actually looking at, if you knew what to watch for, is a nervous system that resets fast enough to leave room for someone else's crisis, not just its own. That's the trait 20 years of selection courses have been quietly hunting for. Not the absence of fear. The presence of room left over once the fear has already been accounted for. If this is the kind of content you come here for, subscribe and turn on notifications. There's more coming.